All right. Good afternoon, New Bedford Guide, New Bedford Live followers. It's Mike Sylvia. We're here to talk about something that's important, something that's going to come to fruition or not come to fruition on Monday, on June 10th, which is called this BID. If you've heard of this thing called BID, it's out there. It's a business improvement district that there's a group of businesses in downtown New Bedford that are looking to bring to the downtown New Bedford area, and there are some people against it. So I wanted people out there to get what we know on New Bedford Guide and bring in some people that know what's going on better than I do, so I can get a little education. And kind of how this happened is a few weeks back, I bumped into my buddy Andrew Kopinski. He's a resident. He lives downtown New Bedford. I used to live downtown New Bedford. I bumped into him at Green Bean and we had a discussion. He kind of trying to educate me on it, and he had a kind of a tertiary knowledge on it. And I said, well, who else should we talk to? And right to mind to me came to Eric, and me and Eric have been friends for years. What I like a lot about Eric is me and him might not agree on a lot of political things, but we respect each other and like to have these kind of conversations. So I thought first person I want to talk to is Eric, and I brought him on. So if you could, my guests right now are Eric, Andre, and Zoo. Eric, why don't you do a quick introduction?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate, especially in this time, the media is something that is avoided in our community. Media is a significant value in our community, like in terms of getting information out there to the public. And unfortunately, what we've seen is a decline in a lot of the local media in terms of the number of reporters that are doing coverage of what's happening locally. So similar to you, I wasn't informed by the local media, and the fact that you as a local media source found out by accident and I found out by accident is something that's alarming. And I'm grateful for you taking the time, especially with the vote happening on Monday, June 10th, at potentially a vote. There's another public hearing which could lead to a vote if they conclude the hearing. They may continue to ask for public comment. They may continue to ask for information from other folks, and it may be continued on, or maybe voted on and voted down, which is a hope that I certainly I'm hoping that the folks that are petitioned and who actually signed the petition, that they'll rescind their signatures and they'll stand down. But your question, my fault. I'm already jumping into
Yeah.
But
let's just get real quick a background on Zoo.
So yeah, I'm Zoo. I'm a New Bedford resident and artist. I grew up here. I live here. I also heard about it, heard about the bid the day of, through Jenny. And she let me know what was going on, and I was like, okay, this is gonna affect my community directly. I need to be there to hear what's happening. And same as Eric, I think it's extremely concerning that this bid has been 10 years in the making, and a lot of residents and business owners in this area didn't hear about it until the day of. So I'm here to, do what I can, speak on what I can. And, I appreciate having the platform to be able to speak out on it, because I agree with Eric as well as there's just local media. I think there just needs to be more of an eye on the things that concern, constituents and citizens and such. So thank you.
Yeah, let me open up. So I try to get a neutral definition, and the Department of Transportation had this as what a bid is. It says a privately directed and public sanctioned organizations that supplement public services within geographically defined boundaries by generating multi-year revenue through a compulsory assessment on local property owners and businesses. So that's the key. So there's a lot to unpack there, but publicly sanctioned and organizations that supplement public services within geographically defined boundaries. A geographic defined boundary is downtown New Bedford. When it says privately directed, that's the nonprofit that would run it, but publicly sanctioned means that the city kind of enforces, I think, this thing. And it says compulsory assessment on property owners and businesses. That means forced payment, right? That these people, everyone has to put up some money, I assume, and that's going to go to certain things. Is that kind of how you guys see a general definition of it?
That's how it was described by Marco Lemandri. He described it as they had a district that they had mapped out. As Zoo was mentioning, there was an attempt 10 years ago to do this district, but they have to have a petition that's sent forth that in order to propose to the city, the municipality, to create one of these things, they have to have a petition with the property owners that are actually going to be assessed this tax, which they're calling a fee. They're trying to say it's not a tax, but the tax assessor's office is the one that's collecting it from the city. So make it make sense.
It's
It's
kind
a
of
tax.
odd, right? To me, it seems odd that you'd have a nonprofit or I guess could be a quasi nonprofit. I've heard the term nonprofit, non-for-profit, and then you have for-profit. It's like all this stuff.
It's a private corporation either way.
Yeah. So, and then the city enforces it, right? Like enforces the collection of it.
Yeah. So we pay a city employee.
Yep.
City tax money is going to pay an employee from our employees from that department to work to now assess this separate tax, and then to collect that tax, and then to apply liens if they don't submit that fee that they're saying is not a tax, but the tax assessor's office can put a lien, and then people can have a tax title issue on their properties. And if people are in hard times already, and we've seen sometimes that happens in our community. There was recently a business in our communities, many businesses that are having difficult times that could exasperate it. Like you're adding another fee. Now that fee is being collected by the city, and then the money is given to this private nonprofit that they haven't created, which has a private board that privately decides what it's going to do with that and has different requirements in terms of reporting. If it's They're talking about doing things in a municipality. They're talking about beautification and cleaning up and marketing the city. These are all things that a city, us as residents, our taxes, and even if we're renters, the renters are paying the taxes for the properties that they're renting from. So we're contributing with the labor and the resources. When I pay the property owner that I'm renting from, he has to pay taxes, and then them taxes are paid through that income that they generate from us as the tenants. So I just say that because sometimes what we hear is like this centering of people with property as the decision makers and things, and the equation erases a majority of our population, which is renters. And we're contributing and we're building this city in our sweat equity, our tears, our blood, some people's literal DNA, going back thousands of years for the Wampanoag people that lived in this, which was the Acushnet, to now. And we're seeing a housing crisis right now, an extreme housing crisis. And for me, when I heard this, I had gone to Destination Soup. It was the day of the eclipse. And I asked Devin, because I don't normally go out as much as I used to, like how is your business doing in this times? Because people are not doing that well. I'm seeing a lot more homelessness. I'm seeing a lot of folks that are struggling. I'm seeing elders that have lived in cars, and folks that are living in cars currently, and families that are living in cars, and people that are living in the woods and walking around and driving around the city late at night. You'll see a lot of people sleeping in random spaces, and there always has been a population of folks that did not have housing in New Bedford since I've lived in New Bedford. But that rate is increased dramatically, and the stresses economically, and in terms of the folks that are talking about how hard it is to meet the day-to-day needs. So when I asked him, he said, "I'm doing okay." Some of the other businesses, he's like, "I'm doing okay because of this, but it's not what it was." And and I'm concerned. He said, "I just found out about this meeting that's happening on Wednesday for this district, and a lot of my work going back since 2013. My family's not from here. My family's from Fox Point, and I always said I was from Fox Point growing up. I said I was an Android. I knew I was Irish. I knew I was Cape Verdean, and I knew I was from Fox Point. And I was born in South Providence, lived in East Providence, lived in Rehoboth, lived in New Bedford, lived in North Dartmouth, lived in all these other places. I never lived in Fox Point. And in 2006, while working at Treatment on Demand, I saw a film my elder cousin made called Some Kind of Funny Puerto Rican. And it's a story about the displacement of the Cape Verdean community. And I saw what we lost. So and being in New Bedford, it made me appreciate it more because what I lost is here. And in 2003, we started to see a plan for gentrification happening in terms of the revitalization of downtown. And we started organizing and speaking out and warning like this, we need to protect our community. And we've seen it escalate over the years. And one of the things that escalated was in 2013, they put a cultural seaport district in the city. And what it does is it redlines communities. And one of the things that influences gentrification is like redlining historically. Like that's why in Ward 4, which abuts downtown, folks from Cape Verdean, African, Jewish, and immigrant Azorian communities, primarily lived in those communities and couldn't live in different communities, and they were divested from. They didn't get the same level of services. They had a lot of toxins in it, like a lot of cancer clusters from moss cutting drill and from the gentrification that happened from whale advocating to redirect Route 18 through the Cape Verdean community and displacing thousands of 2,000 folks, and then they displaced the West End. So like seeing this history of displacement, trying to prevent it, and then knowing that they were going to have a districts by nature increase property value, and there's an in and an out. There's like redlining, there's an in and out. There's some communities of privilege that benefit, and then there's some that abut that don't have that privilege, but they have the consequences. So when you invest downtown and you build up downtown and you put all this money downtown, the value downtown goes up. And one of the strategies of the bid immediately that EJ Pontiff mentioned was a reason why it was important for this to happen. He said that I do 85% of the real estate deals downtown. And one of the problems that happens downtown is sometimes I sell a property and then a couple years later, I sell a property again and it sells for the same value. And that's a problem. Now, that's only a problem for his business model, like for him to make money. That's not a problem for the baker to keep a consistent rent. It's not a problem for the other tenants that have businesses like TL6 that have businesses downtown, that the property value, because the value is a perceived thing. It's people from outside saying that we now have a value and they're interested in buying it from us. So that value only matters if you're looking to sell yourself.
Well, Jeff, if I could just, government by default likes higher property value because they get higher tax off it. So if you look around, the assessor's office, I had problem. I'll give you an example. There was on Acushnet, on North Front Street, there was actually a house that was used as a drug den. It was rated 3 times in 6 weeks. And the next year, the property value went up. And I was like, how can I call the assessors? How does this property value go up? And you talk to people and it's like, well, the higher the property value, the more the government can collect on it. And like you said, businesses can sell it for a higher profit and sell that. But let me ask you this, Eric. I don't know if you might know that you know this answer. What is the assessed cost to each business if this thing passes? What is someone like TL6 on the hook to pay? How much do they actually got to pay to this thing?
So it's the property owners, it's the folks that own the property that will have the bill directly from the city, and then they'll the tenants will then have the bill as an extension through the bill that they have as the rent goes up.
And then so they'll obviously have to pass the costs on to the business inside that building.
Yeah, and it could vary. They had numbers that they provided. They didn't provide a lot of the information and data like when they presented it that night. It wasn't readily available for everybody, and I don't think that is an accident. I think that that's clearly to me a strategy. If you've been working on this for 10 years and the details, you're not like informing the public, and this is supposed to be a public process. Like you're engaging the public government, and it's publicly sanctioned. So, like, why isn't we have to have informed consent?
So I end up after talking to you and talking to Andrew, I end up talking to Jay Lanigan a bit, and some of the stuff we talked about was private, but the part I thought was interesting. He said when the Zeterian closed down, because they're going through remodeling and all that kind of stuff. They said like 30% of everyone's traffic dropped by like 30% everywhere because, Z has 1,100 people on a Friday. If 1,100 people come downtown, they're going to visit all the businesses. And now with the Z gone after COVID, there's less traffic downtown. His thought process was they need marketing money to bring people downtown. What do you say to that?
I say that the disconnected from reality a bit, in my opinion. Like, if you're in tune to what the reality of this world is right now economically, and we're in a position like when the people in the community are doing well, the business will do well. Like, it's like one of those things where they're centering the businesses and they're saying they're going to market to tourists. We're in a reality right now where people are not really on a tour. Tourism is a privileged expense, so to speak. Like when people are dealing with like food and cost of living and the anxiety that is happening economically across the board, not just in working class communities, but also in upper class communities. They're concerned about what is happening globally and what's happening locally in terms of the economics. So people
let me just add real quick real quick to bring Zoo in, because I think that if someone like her, she's not a business owner of the town, but she's a resident. Zoo, how does this
owner, because she's an artist, she's an independent artist, and that's a form of business.
Well, so Zoo, are you actually impacted by the district, or is that something that's outside of where you're at?
Yep. So I'm actually a resident of Ward 4. So I would be directly impacted.
So what do you think? What's the negative impact on you think, or positive?
Possible rent increase, losing neighbors that have been here for years and years. Also, just I'm a huge participant in the culture downtown, and I think that with the BID, the metaphor that I think of is like the New Bedford is like this lush forest of culture, and the BID is like cutting it down and bringing in a mall and a parking lot. You know, it's gonna bring in money.
It makes it corporate kind of.
Exactly, it's gonna bring in money and it's gonna bring in people, but it's just gonna kill the culture that's down here. And I think that that's one of the things that makes anybody want to go anywhere is the city itself has a live and vibrant culture.
And one thing, Eric, we talked about this, over the years. You notice that these meters that are all downtown, right? You remember the green space at Custom House Square? That was a parking lot, and it was long-term parking. In my view, a lot of women don't like to park on a Friday night, Saturday night in Elm Street parking garage and walk downtown, or at the Zeiterion, and that was a nice space for parking. But downtown, the parking meters they're pretty aggressive, right? So one way I think you can make downtown more inviting, because we talked about Jay Lanigan had said that the traffic had dropped since the Zeiterion went away. In the Christmas time, we give these like, hey, you don't have to pay any money on the meters if you use 2 hours and these things. It's like, can we make it more friendly and not do a bid? Or you think that, like, is there ways? So what ways you think that maybe instead of the bid, what are better ways to bring people downtown?
I think supporting the people. Like one of the things I did hear was that the businesses downtown, the restaurants downtown, did really well during COVID. That they did really well because the people were subsidized in terms of their needs, and some of the folks had they also got PPE and support from the government. But when the people had finances, they were receiving money to stay home, and some of them were receiving more money than they had beforehand. Right?
Yep.
They were buying food with that at local restaurants. The community will support the local business owners. We love our community, and people will go and support our community when our community is doing well. So right now we're in a housing crisis. So I think that if we focus on supporting the needs of the people, and stabilizing the people, everyone's taking a hit. And I understand the businesses have anxiety, but look around and read the room. The people are suffering. If we put support systems into supporting, stabilizing our local, because we can't depend on somebody from outside to always say we want to come to the thing. Look at any place that's a quote unquote tourist destination, and look who's the benefiting. The people that are going to benefit from this are the largest landowners in the city. It's the Pontus, it's the Silversteins, it's the Lanigans, it's the folks that at Whale that have a history of this. That is not the community benefit. That's not a community benefit if the property values and the small businesses downtown are erased because they can't afford. If the artists can't afford the studio space they have at No Problemo's building because his taxes go up higher than the $33,000 he's already paying.
And it sounds like, from what I understand, looking at the biggest folks that have been most vocal against it, it's TL6. We had Jenny. We tried to bring Jenny in here, but she had a mic problem. Calico, who also she leads up the DNB Inc. downtown. So what they're saying generally is, hey, this is going to trickle to our rent, which is going to take away our ability to make money. Some of us might have to close down. Is that kind of what you're hearing from them? Because I wanted them on here, but we couldn't get her in. Is that Zoe or Eric? Who wants to answer that?
Do you want to answer it, Zoo?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Go ahead, Eric. You're up.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the concern. That's definitely a concern for the small businesses. That was something at the hearing the baker um, speak about his concern about how this would trickle down to him, how he wasn't informed ahead of time, and he found out a couple of hours, 3 hours beforehand, as well, like Zoo, about this. And yeah, that's a concern. I think some of the other concerns that have come up is some of them are hearing the concerns of and have concerns around what these things do to the population and how they look at the people of the city. Because some of it is very anti poverty, anti poor people, anti working class, and that and not just in what the language here is, but the history of how these bids operate in terms of policing poverty. And right now, I don't think that that's a solution to the problems of our community members that are facing hard times right now. I don't think the idea is to push them around. And also, they're talking about oftentimes in these things, they have the power to use private security to do that. And they
Yeah.
privatize public spaces. So they're talking about taking a place like Wings Court and providing that public land for this private business owner to have access. Now, at the same token, the city is pushing uh, houseless people, the intents around and kicking them off that and throwing away the little bit of property they have. We have organizations that have extended their property to public spaces in Wings Court and are selling beer and food in that space. And from what I'm hearing is that there's conversations about increasing that kind of footprint of that private business enterprise being able to operate in that Wings Court. So part of it is about the privatization of public spaces, the police and the poor people, and also like the lack of transparency and the danger and the fact that instead that this is taking taxes and giving it to a private corporation to manage it under what oversight. And when you look at the history, not just of bids across the country and see the failings of how they create gentrification, how they create harm in terms of like uh, uh, security that potentially disrespects, discriminates, and further harms poor people or people of color. Then you also talk about the fact that now it's out of a democratic process. Like democracy is important. Democracy is something that is like important, that if we're not happy with how something's going, we can vote a city councilor out, we can vote somebody into the tax assessor's office, we can vote a mayor out. With a private corporation having this power, they have all the power to increase the fee. So they start at one fee and now they have the power themselves to increase that fee. Some of these bids are making as much as $3 million a year in the country.
So I see Jenny trying to come in. Let me see if I can bring her in here. Hey, Jenny, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I saw you brought your husband in to fix it. I saw him in the background.
Oh, yeah. He was like, "Babe, what are you doing?" I'm not very good with technology.
So just so you join the discussion, we were talking because, Zoo is an artist. She's impacted. She also lives in the district. Eric is also in the area, but you're one of the business owners, in the heart of downtown New Bedford. What is the biggest negative impact on you? Is it just simply that your rents are going to go up, or what else is there?
Of course, when I first heard about this, I got an email from Alyssa Paquette, who is the president of DMB Inc. And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even really know what a bid was, which I feel kind of silly that I didn't know. But so this was the day of the hearing. And yeah, when I first found out that they were going to, essentially tax my landlord for having a building within the bid, I was like, that's really not fair, especially since he doesn't want to be part of the bid district. So that was initially my first thought before I knew more about bids. And the way that I've really now come to think of it is like, under the bid, being without the bid is living within freedom. And then if we have to live under the enforcement of the bid, it is the opposite of freedom. And that's why it's become so important. And it started out for me about the small businesses and the artists and then the residents that live on the second floor. But then when I started meeting with other folks that were against this and like educating ourselves about what bids have done and the turbo gentrification that they cause and the displacement that it also causes of mom and pop shops and of residents, it's become important to me on a different level than it was when I first heard about it. And now it's more about people and the future and the kids too, because like I have a son growing up in the city, and I think to myself, if they create bids everywhere, because there is some thoughts that they will, if they get this bid in, that they're going to want to do a bid in the north end where I live, and then in the south end. And I don't, then like all of the city is going to be run by different privatized companies. And I'm definitely not for that. It's very undemocratic. I would say, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you. So I talked to Jay Lanigan. He's obviously one of the business owners that's supporting this. And let me know if you think this impacts you as well. He said that since the COVID and Zeiterion closed down because they're getting this money to refurbish and all that, that Zeiterion, that fits 1,100 people. It used to bring a lot of people downtown on a Friday, a Thursday night. He's saying the traffic has dropped significantly since COVID, and now they need something to kind of bring marketing and bring people back in. So his idea is if each business puts in some money, it goes to marketing, it brings people in. So it kind of makes up revenue for what your rents go up. What do you say to that?
Oh, I have a lot to say about that. I think number one, we need to talk about the fact that Jay Lanigan 7 years ago was the reason that the bid didn't go through. So first we have to talk about that and respect that. So yeah, he was one of the reasons why the bid, when it's original, because this has been happening for 10 years, that Marco Lamandri has been trying to get this bid done. So I think that we need to talk about the fact that Jay Lanigan didn't want it the first time. So I feel like that's something that we need to talk about. Then there's also the factor that Jay Lanigan has been offered a seat on the board. So if you're offered a seat at the table or a seat at the board, you're going to think differently about it, right? Because you're being offered something.
Have you been offered at all to be a part of the board, or?
No, I actually went on the Chris McCarthy show, South Coast Now, and he asked me if I would want to be on the board. And I said no publicly on the radio. So I think that people know not to approach me with that. I have had some people that we've been trying to meet with, some of the nonprofit organizations that signed on, and they theoretically, they're like, well, what if they offered you a seat on the board, Jenny? Wouldn't you want that? And to that, I have to say, I am no bid never for New Bedford. It is a power structure that is overwhelmingly, the large landowners have more power over the smaller renting businesses and the residents, and it is an unequal power. It also, I didn't ask to be part of a bid. When I opened my business, my business has been downtown now for almost 18 years. And when I signed my first lease, Craig didn't even own the building at that point, because Craig Paiva owns No Problemo. He owns my building. He didn't, when I first signed on, he didn't even own the building. He had No Problemo. And when I signed in the understanding that I had to abide by the laws and the rules of New Bedford, the city of New Bedford, not Lamandri land, not bid land. So that's really upsetting. But to get back to the whole Zeiterion thing, yes, I do find that the Zeiterion not being there has hurt my business. But what I found hurt my business more, and now that I found out that it's all connected to this, I'm even angrier. In 2018, the city decided to increase the parking meters, both the quarters and the parking fines. And they did this, and then I fought it. I spoke to the mayor. I went to city council. I went before the parking committee. I kept getting shot down, and they were like, just leave this alone. They were really adamant. When I went before the parking committee, or the traffic commission, I guess that's what Chris McCarthy said it was, they told me, and I think this is very telling of how this whole bid thing is being slipped right under, and it's very sneaky the way that they've tried to do this. So when I was going to go before the traffic commission, there's always two city councilors that sit on that commission. And I had to work with one. He had to like tell me like how the committee was going to go and the meeting and like what was doable and what wasn't. And he said to me, you know, Jenny, like, don't bring a lot of people with you and just like make it really understated, you know, and we'll hear your case and no big deal. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I'll be understated, but still get my point across. So I didn't bring anybody with me. And then I show up and they go down the list of everybody that's there to make a complaint or a suggestion or ask them to change something. And every time they call somebody up and they get their chance to talk, like to ask for a handicap street sign or something, they say, okay, is anybody here to second Mrs. Smith about wanting her street sign? So I was there asking them to rescind the 100% increase in the parking tickets. It went from $10 to $20. This is 2018. And they put my case as the last one. So there was no residents in the room anymore. I'm the only person with the parking commission, and I have to get up and like talk before them. And there's no one, they don't even ask if I have anyone else to second what I'm trying to say. And I'm sure I could have found people to back me up. I would hope I could, you know? And so then to come to find out, they voted me down. I will say one of the gentlemen on the parking commission said to me, why should anyone need more than 15 minutes to go into your store? I was like, that's really insulting. I said, we make custom jewelry and sometimes custom engagement rings. You can't make a custom, you know, you can't decide on your engagement ring in 15 minutes. So yeah, that all got voted down. And now fast forward to this. If you read the proposal, if you read the proposal, Mayor Mitchell has signed on that he's going to, from the city, he's going to give the BID $45,000. And that money came from our parking meter fees.
Yeah, I noticed before you came back, I was talking with Eric about that if you remember when, and I wrote an article about this and they weren't happy about it, but I didn't like that they turned the Custom House Square parking, long-term parking into I call it a miniature golf course. It looks like a bunch of little like greens. Because I said, you know, a lot of women I've talked to didn't like to park in the Zeiterion or in the Elm Street and then walk downtown because they didn't feel safe as a single female walking downtown, drinking and walking back to their car. So that was that long-term. You could park 6 hours. You know, you go to the machine and he turned that away. And then I also talked about Eric, you know, saying, hey, you know, in the Christmas time, he does the amnesty thing. If you spend 2 hours, you know, you can if you get a parking ticket, you mail it in with your receipt. I was like, I think it does deter people from coming downtown. If you get a few tickets, you're from Mattapoisett, you come downtown, you leave with a ticket. You're like, maybe I'll go to somewhere else to get my whatever, my Portuguese steak or my custom made jewelry. I think there is a deterrent, and now you got to pump in 8 quarters for an hour, right?
Right, because they changed some, and it was like some meters are, because what used to be, and it makes sense, a quarter gives you 15 minutes.
Yep.
Well, they adjusted that.
About 7.5, right?
Right. And then they adjusted that, and then they upped the tickets. So they were getting, in 2008, I would walk by a row of cars and bam, bam, every car had a ticket.
They're very aggressive.
Yeah,
very aggressive. You could literally park. You could park in front of the post office, go check mail, and come out. There'll be a ticket. Like they are very aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was another thing that, and they didn't. So they did a parking study in, so they did a parking study years ago, and I was there for that too. And I was like, this is ridiculous. You're paying outside consultants all this money to come in and tell us. One of the solutions they had in the parking study was, let's see if the hotel, which has a offsite valet parking, and the YMCA will let people from downtown park in their parking lots. And I was like, guys, you can't do that. If you have a private parking lot, they have specific insurance. You can't just let anybody park there. You know, you can't be like, oh, hotel, we know that you had to do all this work to get a off-site parking because the city didn't want you to suck up any of the parking. Now we want the city workers to be able to go, not city workers, but people that work downtown. We want them to be able to park in your parking lot. It's like, no, you can't. And that is, you know, the city paid this company. And that was, of course, before the pandemic. I'm sorry, my timing might be off because the pandemic shutdown happened in 2019, correct, guys?
Yeah, 2000 end of 2019 into 20. Yeah.
Yeah. So the parking problem
March
happened.
2020. Yeah.
Yeah, happened actually after the pandemic shutdown. That's some of the reason we didn't catch on. It kind of slid through. But during that time, myself and other businesses saw results of a loss of 30% in our sales. That's huge.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying. You know, I kept saying to the mayor and to city council, 30%. And like, I told them how many businesses had left since COVID. And I said, you know, it's not just COVID, it's also, and this is before everything with the Zeiterion. So what I'm saying is, you know, I know Jay's saying that the Zeiterion, the loss of the Zeiterion is causing a lot of economic loss, and he's correct. I mean, I used to waitress at the Spicy Lime, and when they had shows at the Z, that would be a great night. We would be slammed. It'd start early, and then we could like clean up. You know, it was great. But the economic downturn didn't just start with the Z. It started with the pandemic shutdown, and then in the infinite wisdom of the mayor and obviously Marco Lamandri and the other folks that are on the steering committee who decided that, oh, we just reopened from a pandemic. We should up the parking meters and make it harder by now a quarter only gets you 12 minutes. And we'll get all these tickets. We'll collect all that money. And then with this bid that we know we're going to try to push through, we can then take that $45,000 and give it to that bid. So I would say that before even the Zeiterion had that situation, our businesses between road work and aggressive ticketing, seriously aggressive ticketing, because they also were ticketing people. Like if you don't get your car inspected, it used to be that a cop could ticket you, but now they've made it so meter maids can ticket you. So sometimes I would walk by a car and they'd have a $20 ticket for the expired meter, and they'd also have a $50 ticket for their car not being inspected. And I know that's a law and everything, but if you did that, like if you came downtown and you got $70 worth of tickets, you're never going to come back again. I mean, people were posting on Facebook, don't go downtown. They were literally, there were
Yeah, and they would go into the neighborhoods and measure your distance from the driveways, and it was a really aggressive thing. So I reached out to the mayor's office. I wanted a statement from them. Jonathan Darling, he gave me basically a summary and then a mayor's statement. Let's pull it up and just talk about it. So he told me the bid would provide services above and beyond these, which is something else that he talked about, most notably targeted marketing, in placemaking, enhanced beautification, and more frequently cleaning. So more frequent cleaning, including sidewalks, steam cleaning. This also means the regular presence of bid staff walk-in. Now, this is that private folks that would walk downtown, around the downtown to spot and address other quality of life issues and provide a friendly face for the downtown. Our main point is the bid takes the hefty investments the city has made in downtown and continues that. And then the mayor's statement is, according to the U.S. Department of Transportation, business improvement districts have been around since 1960s, and now there are more than 1,000 across the United States in small and big cities. They are widely seen as effective means of increasing demand for retailers and other businesses by making the surrounding public spaces more inviting and by amplifying their marketing efforts. I applaud the property owners in the downtown for showing initiative to establish a bid among themselves as an effort I am pleased to support. Now, he's making it sound like you guys all came together and put this out, but you're saying it's more of a select. Eric has already said he thinks it's more of the more wealthier guys downtown trying to increase their property values. You say
Yeah,
it's, yeah, go ahead.
you can go on, we made a website. I don't know if Eric and Zoo told you, but we made a website called nobidnewbedford.org. And Eric and I actually went and got the contract that it's called a petition that Marco Lamandri and his steering committee that he has picked to, they wrote up their bid petition. And if you go to the very last pages of the bid, you can see the people, the local people he's already collected as his steering committee. And it's all men and one woman, you know? And most of them are restaurant owners. Most of them do not, actually, all of them don't live in New Bedford.
Yeah, I wanted to pull the website up. I found 3 websites that kind of had it. DNB Inc. had a website. I'll put those links in the comments.
Yeah.
This one here, and if you decide you want to put your name on this, you can actually click this sign our petition button, and click here, and it goes, and you can actually sign it. You guys have 542 signatures right now.
We also have a paper petition going too. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is it's just called nobidnewbedford.org. If you want to go there, if anyone's interested, you've been inspired to this. But the real thing, Jenny, right, is people got to show up on June 10th, right?
Yes, we definitely want people to show up on June 10th, but also beforehand. I mean, here we are Thursday, so we've got Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we've got 3 days, really. I'm also asking people to reach out to their city council people and their city councilors. And on the website, it will tell you how you can get there. And definitely go on our website and really look around the website. There are articles, there are information about bids. The thing is, definitely you can email, you can call your city council people, but we really need to let the city council know that this is something that we didn't ask for, because we weren't told. I got 3 hours of notice to come to and it wasn't even notice. And they put it in the Standard Times. One, I hate to say this, who's reading the Standard Times anymore? And 2, when Eric and I got the documents from city council, literally it was like 2-inch little thing that they put into the corner of the Standard Times. And nobody under 65 gets the Standard Times anymore. Yeah. And we need to move with the times.
Yeah. When Henry Bousquet was there, he tried to make it where it wouldn't be just a paper of record. That's how they did it. They wrote something like 1960 that said public notice have to go in the public record, and that's the Standard Times. They haven't updated it since. When Henry Bousquet was there, he tried to add New Bedford Guide and other WBSM and a few others, and they shut it down because, and I was talking before he came back on, with Eric and Zoo, and I said, by default, governments like higher property values because they collect higher taxes.
Yeah, exactly. This is not Mayor Mitchell, Oh, sorry. I'm going to go out on a tangent. Yeah. You go.
I called out, I consider Ian, I talked to him a lot and other city councilors, but they go on, the way they get away with it is they go out and go, look, we lowered your rate, right? Mm-hmm. But what happens is your property value goes up more than the rate does. So you get an extra $300 payment that you have to make for taxes, and that's passed down to the tenants, right? So they say, they go to the newspapers and say, hey, we lowered the tax rate. Mm-hmm. What they don't tell you is, but the assessors, we lowered your rate by 0.5 point, but the assessors put your value up of your building by 10%. So then your property tax goes to a lot more money goes to the government. So by default, like I was telling Eric, I wrote this article, it was about 5 years ago. There was this one house used by, I call a slumlord. He was using this building. It was one of those 8 little kind of rooming house things. Yeah. And the New Bedford police raided it 3 times in 6 weeks. The following year, it was assessed at a higher value. I was like, so I called the assessor. I was like, how the hell a place that is being raided by the police goes up in value? He's like, oh, we couldn't get in there, so we just assessed it higher, basically. I'm like, this is insane. You don't, they want higher values, they get more taxes out of it.
I think the thing that happens to that too is that, looking at the model of how taxes are assessed in the United States, taxes are assessed by not only the perceived value of the property, but also the value of the property around it. So like that's one of the big concerns around these districts is that they increase the property value and they're designed to increase property value in that area. And then all the abutters also, like, so the community that abuts it is impacted in terms of their rent is gonna go up as well. And I want to just add a point around that the parking tickets thing. That revenue that's generated from that is unrestricted capital that they have access to. So I found out in 2013 that they were making over $1 million off of parking tickets in 2013, and they had started to get a little bit aggressive then. They're extremely aggressive now. There's more employees down there going out there ticketing, and the tickets are more expensive. And now that revenue is coming in. So when the mayor talks about that this is going to provide additional service that the city can do, why are we taking money that's generated from taxing and coming from the city, the people that are putting money in the meters into the city, whether tourists or city residents paying these tickets? Why aren't you taking that money and then hiring another person to be maybe the maintenance person, the supervisor, the superintendent of downtown that goes around?
I think Jenny would probably tell you that $1 million generated is $1 million not going into the businesses.
Right.
Oh, it definitely isn't. And I did pull the stats, and I was going to pull them again. I pulled them back when I was fighting it, and I can't remember because like numbers off the top of my head aren't my thing, you know, but man, when I looked at it and I showed other people, really eyes opened to how much money is coming in. And it's like, yeah, that should be turned over. And also, I think Eric has heard me say this. We used to have, years ago, we had a guy that was kind of like the maintenance guy of downtown. And he kind of like, you know, just took care of like, cleaned up the sidewalks. He knew everyone. He'd go to Wings Court, make sure that place looked good, you know, just kind of, you know, sweeping up the sidewalks, making sure things were functional. Nice guy. We all liked him. And we used to also have a community officer who would ride around on a bicycle. He was a bike cop. And we all knew him by name and everything else. And that was provided by the city. You know, yeah. Was he a friend of yours? Did you know one of our?
He was just a very friendly guy. I always thought dark hair. I forget his name, but yeah.
Yeah, we had first we had a guy named Sean. He was older, but when he retired from being a community officer, because you have to be on a bike and you know, but I think a community officer is I want another community officer back because I would rather have a New Bedford cop that knows the neighborhood instead of this idea of privatized security. Now, I will tell you this, and I think this is a telltale sign that everything gets shifted around anytime that we complain, is that we kept talking about the point of privatized security and how we were uncomfortable about it. We don't like it. We feel like it's unnecessary and it's an expense that's ridiculous.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous because
it's dangerous.
There's
very dangerous.
There's no internal affairs. How do you can't do a federal records request for the information from that? Like,
yep.
They closed down. The difference between New Bedford and Fall River was New Bedford always had district police stations, so you had them kind of spread out through the community, and it's kind of pulling away from that. They closed the downtown one, where Fall River has one station, and cops have to go drive and idle places and all that. But let me bring Zoo in because I don't want to pull her away too much from this and not contribute. But Zoo is an artist. She's also a resident in the ward. So what would you we talked a little bit, Zoo, about like how it impacts you, but what would you recommend, people do? You have, and I guess all you can tell me is on Monday is just one more step towards it, but doesn't finalize on Monday, right? But what kind of action are you looking at?
I think that beyond June 10th, it's really important for us to organize as a community and get together to be able to continuously defend ourselves from things like this. Because I think one of my biggest frustrations is that Mitchell and the city council are, I don't know if this language is inappropriate, but pimping the city out to other communities, to these businesses. And I think that it's just extremely painful to see how willing they are to take on this bid without putting in the effort to be able to support the local community, to like just the fact that they're increasing the parking rates, and that's hurting the downtown, and then using that to bring in an outside corporation to further hurt the downtown is just like, I think that we need to come together as a community to say, what do we really want in this city that's going to help us thrive as a community, not just as business owners, not just as property owners, but as people who live here and who want to see this community thrive. Because that's the beautiful thing about New Bedford, is that there are people here that invest their families are here, their entire lives are here, and they really care about each other in this community. And I think that it feels like City Council is taking the easy way out and deciding to take on this bid, because a lot of people have extremely incredible ideas about how to, be a part of the downtown, be a part of the North End, be a part of the South End, bring these things together, but we don't have support, And I think that that's a big thing, is just getting educated, coming together and saying, what do we really want in this city? And if it means electing new city councilors and a new mayor, I think that that's important, because what is a government if not for the people,
Yeah. If you have a question, bring it up. I'll bring up Craig asks. He says, how can we fix issues downtown without the bid proposal? So if there was, let's say the bid fails, how do we bring back is it wait for the Z to open up? I've heard the Z could be another 2 or 3 years to open up. Greasy, I think the was it Greasy Luck, and now it's called what is it called?
The Vault.
Yeah, the Vault. They have their own restaurant, so it doesn't spill out as much as the Z did. The Z had drinks and stuff, but so as business owners, as residents in New Bedford, what do you think is issues downtown, and how do you fix it? Is it just get rid of the parking meters? What is it?
Well, unfortunately, you can't really get rid of parking meters altogether, but there are some solutions that were thought of by locals to combat that loss from the Z. I don't know if people are aware of this, but the Your Theater project finally has their occupancy permit and they're up and running. The really annoying thing is the Your Theater people wanted to be up and running so that when the Zeiterion was closed, that they could do some of their shows there. Now, it's not as large as the Zeiterion, of course, it's not as large, but if we could have Zeiterion sponsored things there, so we still have people that are coming, because my fear too is, I went to the symphony played at New Bedford High, and it sounded incredible. So I was like, wow, maybe they'll start playing somewhere else instead of the Z, because the Z is taking so long. And but I also was like, knowing that the Your Theater was right at the cusp of being able to open, and that the city was kind of like, why isn't the city working to get that occupancy permit? Why aren't they working with Your Theater to get that occupancy permit so that the Zeiterion can have events there? There's also the Gallery X has a stage. Let's have some Zeiterion sponsored things there. Let's bring the Folk Fest back. The Zeiterion was responsible for that. I mean, I know we have a new, I should say, Jeff Angeli, who's a local musician, has started a new, it's called the Roots and Branches, and it's all local folk people. And I'm glad that he did that, and he's trying to put them at different points. But there are ways to combat the Zeiterion. There's also the Downtown Unitarian Tri-Works, which is also an area that could be utilized by the Zeiterion to keep people coming downtown. But I do have a really big fear that, that the Zeiterion has chosen to use venues that are not in downtown for whatever reason, mostly probably space. The space, because New Bedford High's auditorium is large, and they're also using UMass Dartmouth's auditoriums, and they have 2 auditoriums, both larger than the Zeiterion. Well, one smaller than the Zeiterion. So this is, kind of a problem. I'm seeing a question here. Folk festival under the Zeiterion organization could have been a godsend. Yes. And I will also tell you, because I used to be pretty involved in the folk festival. And I knew the first people that started it. And for 16 years, we always had a craft table there. And I can tell you what really ruined the folk festival. I mean, some people are going to say, hey, Jen, it never made money. But I'll tell you, year after year, we had people coming from Boston, Connecticut, New Hampshire, all over New England, mostly, to our city. and they were provided free parking in the parking garage at Elm Street. Well, when the mayor in his infinite wisdom decided, this is Mayor Mitchell, decided that he was going to make the parking garage automated, and he did it right before the folk festival, and my business partner and I, we did everything to tell him, like, we emailed his office a bunch. We called his office a bunch. We were like, this is going, because you have to pay now. These people have paid $100 ticket or $150 ticket. And now he didn't tell them, because usually when you would get your tickets mailed to you, you would have something that would tell you free parking at the Elm Street garage, because we took up all the space with the craft tables. So that year, he decided, and this was like a major downfall when this happened. He decided, no, I want to make money off of this. I have an automated garage now, so I don't have to pay somebody to be there. They hadn't worked out all of the kinks of the automated gates. And he made it so, and didn't, the Criterion or whoever didn't send the little tickets that say free parking or that you have to pay for parking or whatever. So when people got there and they saw that the gates were up and that they had to take a ticket and they had to pay to park, they were like, oh my God, now I've paid like $100 and something for my ticket, and now I have to pay another $20 for this, when all of the years before they had had that free parking to try to bring people into the city. But what really soured people is when they tried to leave the parking lot and the automated arms didn't work and people were stuck for 3 hours.
Yeah, that's my problem when I go downtown. Me and my wife, I go to a lot of events. If they just put a cop at the entrance and had the thing open and directed people out, you could empty the garage quick. But instead, we're all stuck with cars. Like, it could take you an hour to get out of that, even with the arm working.
Even with the arm working. 3 hours. I came along. I had a parking pass and the police were there. They wouldn't let me use my parking pass to let those people out. And I was like, listen, we need to let these people out. And so finally, the cop was like, oh yeah, now we'll use your parking pass. And I was like, there's a pregnant lady right there with a broken leg stuck. There was a woman stuck on the top of it who needed to nurse her baby. You know, like, yeah, you can nurse a baby in a car, but do you want to?
Yeah, and then with the Star Store closing down, that has a lot less of the art students downtown, I think, right? So that hurt some of the traffic. The Criterion now is, like, I think a couple years behind schedule.
Yep. They lost their
contract. Some people in government, they keep finding new things that are popping up, because it's an old building, right? So you keep finding new problems that need new things. But let's kind of close here in the next 5 minutes. One thing I would like to ask is, so we have Monday at 7:00 in the city council chambers, and this thing could last a little while. I don't think it'll finalize that day. If you either support it or you don't, you should at least go there. If you don't know anything about it, go listen to both sides, see what's going on. Because from my understanding is you guys are winning the information war on the internet, but that this thing is already a done deal and the city council is going to vote for it. That's just what I understand. What do you say to that?
I say that the problem is that if the population is saying they don't want it, and then the decisions are being made by these people behind closed doors, there's conversations about opportunities being presented to people to change their opinion on it. A lot of the petition shouldn't even have gone through. They have to have 51% of the properties in that area that signed on. There's so many of the properties that were signed on by the mayor. So how is the mayor from the city of New Bedford signing properties to an application to the city of New Bedford? How are nonprofits that don't have a tax liability making decisions? Making a decision that's going to impact who is taxing this thing. So I think it's disturbing that the city councilors would make a decision, in particular when they voted against even having a ballot question about rent stabilization. Just a question about whether or not we should explore rent stabilization was, now we can't have that conversation. We can't.
Yeah, we can't talk about it
because it would push away developers.
That's
another problem. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think we're all angry about that, because we should all be able to have a conversation about something.
Right.
I couldn't believe, like, for me, when they said we couldn't even talk about rent stabilization and the housing crisis, like, they didn't want us to really talk about it. I'm sorry. when we start living in a government like that, the government has failed us. They have failed us, and they want to bring in this shadow government to rule over downtown. And then they want to, they think that's the solution. Like city council thinks we need a babysitter or something.
Right.
We don't need a babysitter. We're doing good. We're actually doing good. I survived the pandemic shutdown, my sister dying from COVID, and 30% loss in my sales, and I have always paid my rent. So I'm not the problem. I don't need a babysitter. What I need is a functioning government. This is a failure of government. They took away our maintenance person. They took away our everyday trash pickup. Then they took away our community officer. But even more than that, if we can't even have a discussion, if city council votes that we can't talk about rent stabilization, then we have a bigger problem here. And I just want to say, I'm sorry, I should let someone else talk.
No, that's okay. Zoo, did you want to say something before I add something? You were talking to.
I think I might have lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
I think that in general, I think that in order to be able to survive where the economy is going, where the country is going, things need to be people-centered. We need to create systems that are people-centered and not business-centered or property owner-centered, because at the end of the day, they're all people too. And when we start from the bottom and help people that need support at the bottom, that's where things start to grow up. Top down is a myth. Top down, we know already that top down, that trickle down is a lie. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm coming from, is like, let's start with the people and then go from there.
If I can tell you why I think I've interviewed a lot of state reps, a lot of city councils. I held the mayor debates, in New Bedford and Fall River. I can tell you just from just looking at this, a lot of reasons is the only time you ever get on the city council when someone retires. The mayor, I wrote an article called "New Bedford is voting away their right to vote," which happened when they moved it from a 2 to a 4 year term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So you give someone a 4 year term, then they don't have to win your vote for 4 years. They can do certain things. And then the only time someone gets into office, like I think Ian got in there, he used to run against Joe Lopes in Ward 6, but he got in there because Al's retired and he filled in. They have these almost lifetime, let me bring Eric back in. They have these almost lifetime appointments. Right. And even if there's a popular thing, they can vote against it and know there's no repercussions. Is that kind of accurate to you guys? Because I
definitely think so.
The mayor,
the mayor and he, I always vote because people are like, oh, it's because New Bedford doesn't vote. Well, let's make it even easier to vote. Let's have voting be like a holiday, and but I always vote. The problem is that you're right. There's always the same people running. And right now, what's really disappointing, I think, to all of us, I don't like to speak for my colleagues and my friends in the community, but I think that, the fact that the city council thinks they have the right to make a vote about our lives, that we're actively telling them we don't want this. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know how much more I can tell somebody. We have sent 220 different postcards signed by 220 people that say right on them, no bid. People have been sending letters. I send emails almost every day. I went on the Chris McCarthy show and I talked to him about it. And I know that the city council was listening because it was funny. I wasn't getting any answers from city council. I went on the Chris McCarthy show, and the very next day I was having people call me. And, Ian Abreu has stopped answering any of my Facebook messages and any of my texts because I know that he's for this. And I wrote him an email, and I say this to people because he just opened a business in the South End. And I said, Ian, how would you like it if you've now opened your business, you signed the lease, you're there, you're good, say a year goes by, and now all of a sudden you are told that there is going to be a shadow government that can tell you what the color of your building can be. It can raise your rent. It can hire privatized security. It can decide who can and cannot be in the district. These district rules can get out of control.
Yeah, if you ever lived in an association, you can understand how they can get out of control. when I was in Hawaii, I was in the military out there. I got a house. My association fee was $195 a month.
Yeah.
In 3 years, it was $600 a month. And they started adding services and adding all these things, and it can get eventually out of control. And I don't know that this is the same thing. I don't know.
I think it's a Trojan horse. I think it's a Trojan horse because looking at the price and the person that's presenting it, he's done 100 of them. So this is like his business model is to go into communities to sell this Wizard of Oz pipe dream that is going to magically make people come in. My thing is, if Jay Lanigan and Silverstein and Pontiff and Mako Lemandry all want to increase marketing to increase revenue to their particular businesses, they can voluntarily take their resources and do that, just like other business people have to do.
Yep.
Forcing everybody into this situation is undemocratic. It's unnecessary. It's a duplication of services that our public entities are supposed to be providing already. You're talking about cleaning the streets. You're talking about security. You're talking about marketing. We have Downtown New Bedford. We have Destination New Bedford. We have Explore New Bedford. We have DNB Inc. We have the Chamber of Commerce. We have the New Bedford Economic Development Corporation. We have the foundations that are concerned about including that. And then we have them individual businesses. If you want to voluntarily do that without creating harm to that we've mentioned today, then you can do that. You have the freedom to do that. But what you want to do is you want to make it compulsory so everybody has to do what you want, and it's only benefiting the largest amongst us. The Native Americans have a practice of following the wolves. The wolves, when they travel, the elderly, the young, the disabled, the sick are the ones that set the pace in the front so that no one gets left behind. They're right now on a fast track for the richest, the 1% of the city to have these benefits and be in a decision-making position. Like Jenny said, some of the critiques we've made, they try to adjust it to make it more palatable. They're trying to put like a spoonful of sugar with this poison. It's not medicine, this poison that they're trying to drop down the throat. So they're going to try to reach out to people from AHA to be on the board. They're going to start reaching out to this person and say, we'll offer you a job for $87,000 and you can come onto this board. They're going to do stuff like that to attract people. And that, we're saying is not what we need as a community.
Yeah, and what I tell people is, you gotta. Me and Eric met about 10 years ago, and I saw this amazing.
I think longer.
Has it been longer than 10 years though?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it was like 2012 maybe. You had ran for city. You went in front of the city council.
2010, I think it was.
Yeah, you gave this amazing speech. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And I grabbed his video, put it on New Bedford Guide, and then you ran for school committee. Had the #1 vote of a newcomer to ever on school committee. I think you got like 3,500 votes or some like high number. That's what people have to do. You got to challenge if you're gonna.
And that video was from making a public comment at city council in 2004.
Do we have that anymore? Is there public comment?
Come to this meeting on Monday. If you have concerns about what's happening in the city, if you're concerned about the displacement or the struggles that people are having, come out there. You have 3 minutes to tell why you want these change, and your words can have an impact.
We'll be putting some of those out, and so if you go there and speak, we'll get you the thousands of views. And end of the day, the voters have to make the decision. But this is something that's in the hands of the city council, from my understanding, right? What they decide on is how it's going to come out. Is that kind of fair?
Yes, that is at this level of the process, they get to vote yes or no. But what I want them to know, and I said when I was on the radio, I'm not backing down. This is the hill that I'm going to die on. And I don't even if this is the last thing, that the last mark I leave, before I have to leave my business because they've made it impossible to run a business downtown, I will. I am actively looking and seeking legal advice and help. I am constantly in contact with, that's the thing, is like, you might only, because some people are like, oh, it's just Jen and it's just Eric, they're the ones that are really there's not many of these people. There's a lot of us. And just because not everybody wants to come on a podcast and not everybody wants to go on the Chris McCarthy show, it's just, not everyone is someone that wants to be like I am, blah, 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 but you see us here, there are way more of us in the background, and they are coming out, and they're doing research. They're bringing it to us. You know, we are working all together. We are finding people that like have so, and it's not just people in New Bedford, it's people in other surrounding towns.
It's other
that
things
don't
that
want
have
this to
had it.
happen.
In states.
Other
Other
states
states
have
as well.
had bids and had negatively had impact or fought back against it. And I think that that's a important thing to look at, is like how it's going to impact us.
Yeah, and if like I think what Eric said, or I forget who said it, but if it passes downtown, it might head to the north end, it might head to the south end. So
That's
this
what
might
our
be.
fear is.
So whether you're for or against this, and we have 3 people who are against this, if this does happen, it could open up a can of worms, right? But
I think if we had I wish I had resources. This is the power that rich folks like that to make decisions. Like Silverstein, he listed all these accolades his family had, all this wealth that he had, and he said, because I have this wealth. Basically, he didn't say it like that, but I'm paraphrasing. He said all these successes, all these boards that he's part of. I know what New Bedford needs. And this is the same person that's building a restaurant downtown. That's a Mexican restaurant, despite the fact that in New Bedford, one of the first best businesses down here to revitalize downtown and come in was what? No Problemo. And then you have 4 other Central American Mexican restaurants within a mile's radius of that site. So they are positioning to say that this is something that we need. And they've got this petition that's signed forth. I've ran for office, and in order to get a petition on the ballot, you have to have valid signatures on it. And if you don't get put forward. Like I submitted paperwork to run for city council the last day. I didn't really know if I wanted to do it. And when I saw no one was running, and I pulled, and I had 75 signatures, but I think 48 of them were valid. So they said, you're not able to go onto the ballot. The same way that's done for this, when Shane Burgo was asking, hey, there's a lot of these petitions on nonprofits. They don't even have a say in this. Is that legal? The city solicitor was like, we don't know. We're not sure. And he said, oh, we can discuss all these matters later. Just vote on it now. So my thought is that there's some legal aspects of whether or not they even meet the threshold for that 51%. And that's something I think that if there's anybody out there that has a lawyer, that has support, or that's concerned about these kind of things, please reach out to New Bedford.org. We have an Instagram page as well, No Bid New Bedford, because that may be another angle, is the legality of it.
And if I could add, there's 2 things I like to add before we kind of close out, which is one, Eric, if you've probably seen Eric a lot in New Bedford Guy, he's just sent me his spoken words, he's just sent me his essays. And some of those videos got 50,000 views, Eric. I remember you were sending me these spoken words, and it was like powerful. A lot of people watch it. I tell people out there is New Bedford Guide I call it the people's news. Most of our content is sent to us. Send us your videos. I was telling Jenny, her and her husband put out some really good stuff on her TL6 gallery. Well, I have a bigger voice. Send it to me. I'll put it out there. Send me your essays, whether it's this issue or any other issue. And then let's end with Zoo. You're an artist. You have something going on at Gallery X. Tell us about that.
Oh, so there's going to be a show at Gallery X, and it's called For the Love of the Ocean. It's going to go on from the 6th to the 27th. It's the same day as the Cape Verdean Day Parade. Taking submissions, I guess at my Instagram or email. I guess we could include that somewhere else.
Yeah, we can post in the comments later. Yep.
But yeah, basically the show is trying to build some community around New Bedford's relationship with the ocean, and how we have a really special opportunity being here and being able to be in touch with it. And I just want to create some community and some conversation around that. Thank you though. Yeah,
I'm gonna reach out to both Jenny and Zoo after to let's do our own little video for you guys, get people into Jenny's business, get people to Zoo's show. This is kind of at the end, so it might not get the message out, but let's do something in the future here between you two. And then of course me and Eric we stay connected, and we'll do things as stuff pops up. So I really appreciate the time that y'all sharing. I thought it was important that people get the message out there, whether you're for or against this. I want you to have a voice on New Bedford Guide. And I think this is something that is you can see Jenny is very passionate. We could be here until midnight, I think, and she'll talk about it. And you could tell Zoo is very cares about it. She's a little more polite than I am and Jenny, right? She'll sit there and wait her turn, but she's definitely passionate. And I know I've known Eric over 10 years. It's been 10 years, man. I can't believe we're all getting old, huh? It's like been so fast. But Eric is extremely passionate. He's well versed. He's very knowledgeable on these kind of topics. So I appreciate everyone for tuning in, and we'll try to keep these discussions going in the future. So thanks so much, folks.
Thank you for allowing space for the community to have voice, because that's something that's really a challenge. And most places, when we do have that space, we're largely edited out of it. And it doesn't really reflect the voice that we have. So they'll come and talk to us for an hour from some of the other media sites. And, it's a really a great opportunity to allow our voice to be heard out there. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And Jeff is asking, what's Jenny business? She's at the TL6. It's just a little bit up from No Problemos as you kind of head to what used to be the old Hibernia, kind of heading towards the city hall from No Problemos. She's right there. Nice little, it's mostly custom made stuff, Jenny. Is that what it is?
Yeah, so at TL6, the gallery, it's 100 William Street. So if you're at No Problemo, you head towards the library. And I have 20 different local artists that show their work. And then myself and my business partner are metalsmiths. So we make silver jewelry. And then we have a few retail lines that our customers like.
Yeah, we'll come by there and take care of her. We'll do a video, kind of promote the business. Same with Zoo. All right. So thanks so much. Really appreciate your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.